Okay, what is it exactly that we mean when we say belonging? Well, what we don't mean is a feeling or a sense. Belonging is a pattern that shows up everywhere we look in the universe, and it is a pattern of relationships between things based on their identity, their purpose, and their needs, or their identity, their output, and their input. So, for example, a proton, which is part of the nucleus of an atom. A proton has a particular identity. It's a proton. I'm not enough of a scientist to describe that much more than that, but that identity is intrinsic. It is what it is because it is what it is. It's essential. It's its core self, you might say. And out of the proton's identity comes its purpose. Whatever it does is what is naturally its natural outflow, its output. It's what it contributes to its relationships and to the larger system. And it requires input, it requires resources, it has needs that have to be met in order for it to do proton stuff. In order for it to even exist as a proton, it needs to have its needs met. And the pattern shows up when it joins in relationship with a neutron. A neutron also has an identity, a purpose, and a set of needs. And a proton and a neutron together they sort of complete each other. They meet each other's needs, and so they're optimized. So there's a pattern there. I would also attribute the word belonging to the force that shows up between a proton and a neutron that holds them together. It attracts them, and also it keeps them from merging. So it creates a tension. It is a tension between the proton and the neutron that holds them together and keeps them from merging. And so then they together form a new thing. This is the pattern, the identity, purpose, and needs of the electron, of the proton, the identity, purpose, and needs of the neutron. When they fit together the way that they match up, they form the nucleus of an atom. And when you add an electron, you get a complete atom. All three of them have an identity, a purpose, and some needs, or what I would call an IPN. And when they come together, they're the puzzle pieces that they are. When they become a complete puzzle, they form a new IPN. And then you take one atom and you join it with some other atoms, and you get a molecule. Each of the other atoms has an IPN. When you put them together, the molecule is a new IPN. You put a bunch of molecules together and it forms an IPN. And this just keeps going all the way up through more complex organisms and ecosystems, cities, planets, galaxies, on and on and on. So at every scale, everywhere in the universe, this pattern keeps repeating itself. And that force that holds things together but keeps their individuality intact also exists, and the structure that's formed by all those things. So when I say belonging, I'm talking about a pattern, a force, and a structure all working in unison. And I would suggest that belonging is the most fundamental pattern, the most fundamental force, and the most fundamental structure in all of the universe. The only place that it breaks down is where humans intervene in ways that don't follow the natural laws of the universe. It's not all bad, because the reason that we have the capacity to resist or refuse or be uncooperative with this pattern, this force, and this structure is because we also have the capacity to choose to cooperate with it consciously. We can innovate. We can become participants in the patterns and forces and structures of the universe, which you can see that happening in negative ways, extinction and environmental collapse and all kinds of violence and different things. but you can also see it in positive ways. For example, humans are capable of things like symphonies and English gardens and medical advances and long lifespans and all. There's all sorts of things that we can create, that we can innovate by cooperating with the force and the pattern and the structure of belonging in ways that are generative, that are health giving, that go beyond homeostasis to positive adaptations. It's very powerful, very exciting, and damaging if used incorrectly. But that's what we're talking about belonging. Now, I said in the very beginning that belonging isn't a feeling or a sense. I hold to that, but I will concede that there are lots of feelings and sensations that go along with belonging. If you're experiencing alignment and cooperation with this pattern and you move to balance and wholeness and homeostasis, feelings are associated with that, like peace and ease and tranquility and joy and contentment and happiness and all of those kinds of positive things. And if you clash with the patterns, the forces, and the structures of belonging, there are feelings and sensations that are associated with that sort of discord and disintegration, like unhappiness and sadness and anger and fear and discontent and worry and rage and etc., etc. So belonging isn't a sense or a feeling, but there are lots of senses and feelings that are associated with it. I think that the important thing here is that we recognize that belonging is fundamental. It's not an add-on. It's actually core as a foundation, even more than gravity. You can go places in the universe where gravity has very little impact. It becomes, I don't know if it's right scientifically to say it becomes less foundational or less structural, but we are affected by it less. But there isn't any place in the universe where any of the other things that are considered fundamental might be decreased or increased. There isn't any place in the universe that you can go where belonging is less than. It stays in existence. Even people who have near-death experiences and talk about their experiences afterwards, belonging is still a factor. Their connectedness, their identity, their purpose and needs are with them even when they have left their bodies. And most major religions would say the same thing is true. Our experience of belonging is increased when we proceed beyond life on earth. So some key things about what we mean when we say belonging that are foundational to the discussion that we're having about how to create health and systemic balance and wholeness in the human system and in all other systems. There you go. That's belonging.